They put me in a nursing home to take my house. I let them. Before you judge me, listen carefully to this story. If you respect family, you need to hear every word. What happened to me happens more often than people admit. They didn't shout or argue when they decided my fate. They spoke calmly, like it was already settled. My son said the nursing home was for my safety. My daughter nodded and avoided my eyes. That was when I understood they wanted my house. They stood in my living room like visitors, not family. The same room I had paid for with decades of work. They spoke as if I wasn't sitting right there. Words like burden and stress floated in the air. They said I was forgetting things more often. They said the house was too much for me. They said age changes people. What changed them was greed. I had lived in that house for 43 years. Every wall held a memory of sacrifice. I raised children there and buried dreams there. I survived storms, illness, and loneliness there. That house knew me better than they did. Yet suddenly, it was no longer mine in their minds. They talked about it like future property. I listened and said nothing. The nursing home decision came fast. Too fast for someone who supposedly needed care. They packed my things without asking. They chose what mattered and what didn't. They told relatives. I agreed with everything. They said I was relieved to leave. None of that was true. Silence was my only defense. The day they dropped me off, they didn't linger. My suitcase was placed beside the bed. Forms were signed with practiced smiles. A nurse asked if my family would visit often. My son answered before I could speak. Of course, he said quickly. Then they left before lunch. That was the last time I saw them for weeks. That first night, I couldn't sleep. The ceiling was unfamiliar and cold. Around me, strangers whispered in the dark. Some cried softly when they thought no one heard. I wasn't afraid of the place itself. I was afraid of how easy it had been, easy to remove me from my life, easy to erase my presence. Days passed without phone calls. Weeks followed with the same silence. When I called, they always sounded busy. My daughter said the house needed repairs. My son said stress wasn't good for me. They told me not to worry about details. Details like ownership and control. Details like my future at the nursing home. People spoke around me. Decisions were made without my consent. Meals, schedules, medications, all chosen for me. Other residents stared at the floor. Many had stories like mine, families who slowly disappeared. I listened more than I spoke. Listening has always been my strength. They believed age had made me slow. They believed confusion would protect them. What they didn't understand was patience. I remembered every word they said, every excuse they repeated, every contradiction they didn't notice. Lies never stay consistent. Time exposes them. If this story feels familiar, don't ignore it. Subscribe now, because silence helps the wrong people. I knew I still had one advantage. My mind was clear and steady. I had planned for a day like this, not because I expected betrayal, but because wisdom prepares for reality, and reality is often disappointing. Years earlier, I watched a neighbor lose everything. Her children sold her home while she was alive. She never recovered from that betrayal. That image stayed with me, so I visited a lawyer I trusted. We talked about dignity and protection. We talked about uncomfortable possibilities. He told me preparation was strength. I updated my documents quietly. No announcements, no warnings. I kept control where it belonged. I placed safeguards in place. Not against strangers, but against family. People don't like hearing that truth, but blood doesn't guarantee loyalty. Experience teaches that lesson well. From the nursing home phone, I called that lawyer. My voice didn't shake. I explained exactly what had happened. There was a long pause on the line. Then he spoke carefully. "You did the right thing by staying silent," he said. They revealed more than they realized. That silence became my shield. While my children changed locks, I waited. They sorted my belongings without permission. They spoke about renovations and plans. They assumed ownership had already transferred. They never checked the facts. They never imagined consequences. Confidence made them careless. Carelessness always leaves evidence. A formal letter arrived at the house. It wasn't addressed to me. It carried legal language they didn't understand, requests they couldn't answer, documents they couldn't produce. Suddenly, my phone rang nonstop. Concern replaced neglect overnight. I didn't answer. Halfway through this story, ask yourself something. How many elders are treated this way right now? How many are told to be grateful? The lawyer filed official complaints. A nurse confirmed overheard conversations. A witness stepped forward unexpectedly. Patterns became undeniable. Truth formed quietly when my children were summoned. They looked confident. They always did. Confidence built on entitlement doesn't last. One document changed the room. Another sealed their silence. Restrictions were placed immediately. The house was protected fully. Control returned to me. Questions followed that they couldn't answer. Why was I declared incapable? Why was I isolated? Why were my belongings removed? Their stories contradicted each other. Excuses collapsed under scrutiny. Silence replaced their arrogance. Justice listened patiently. The ruling came faster than expected. The nursing home placement was deemed manipulative. Full authority over my assets was restored. Legal boundaries were enforced. The house was secured permanently. They avoided my eyes completely. Their confidence disappeared. Reality had arrived. I didn't celebrate the decision. I felt relief, not joy. Dignity returned quietly, just as it had been taken. No shouting was needed. No revenge was required. Truth carried enough weight. It always does. I chose when to leave the nursing home. Choice matters more than people admit. I didn't rush back to the house. I chose peace. First, they learned something important. Control is temporary. Respect cannot be stolen, and consequences don't negotiate. People think strength is loud. They think it demands attention. They are wrong. Strength waits and observes. Strength prepares quietly. My children mistook patience for weakness. That mistake cost them everything. Time corrected them. I still carry the memory of betrayal. It doesn't disappear, but it no longer controls me. I live with clarity now. I trust actions over words. I trust preparation over hope. Age didn't weaken me. It sharpened my judgment. If you know someone being pushed aside, speak. Don't wait until it's too late. Silence protects abusers. Light makes manipulation uncomfortable. Age does not erase rights. Dependence does not cancel dignity. Preparation is not cruelty. It is survival. Families don't like hearing these truths. They prefer comfortable lies, but comfort feeds injustice. Respect must be practiced, not promised. Care must be proven, not claimed. Words mean nothing without action. I learned that too late, but not too late to act. The house still stands. It still holds my memories, but it no longer defines me. What defines me is choice and boundaries and the refusal to disappear quietly. I reclaimed more than property. I reclaimed myself. Many elders believe silence is dignity. Sometimes it is, but silence without preparation is danger. Speak when it matters. Prepare while you can. Trust wisely. Assume nothing. Protect yourself. This story is not rare. It's simply rarely told. Too many feel ashamed. Too many feel powerless. They are not. Knowledge changes outcomes. Preparation changes power. Truth changes everything. If this story resonated with you, stay, listen to the others, share this with someone who needs it. Stories protect when silence fails. Awareness saves dignity. Time does not forgive neglect, but justice remembers everything, even quietly. Remember this above all else. Respect is not a favor, it is a debt owed. Age does not cancel worth. Family does not excuse betrayal. If this story meant something, subscribe. More truths are waiting, and silence is no longer an option.